episode 2 of ImpactEd, and today we're talking about vision statements.
And I'm really excited, James. Vision statement is the most important starting point, I believe, in the planning process. Nothing can be great if it's not built on good, and it's absolutely imperative that we get this process right.
Big question for me is why now? Why would we look at this at the beginning of the situational analysis, Steve, and not later on?
There are two schools of thought, James, and one is that you should conduct the situational analysis and then look at the vision. I sit in a different camp. I believe you look at the vision statement, and for a principal you should be looking at where you can take the school as a result of your leadership. So you're looking at where you want to be, and that's not a short journey. It can be a significant point in the future, but then when you're doing your situational analysis, you're looking about where you want to go compared to where you currently are, and it's that gap analysis for me that starts to inform and make your priorities of the actions and initiatives you need to take.
What about the principal who's new to a setting, new to a school, Steve?
That's a good question, James. And look, if you are new to a school, I'll probably change my stance and say conduct the situation analysis, get a really clear picture of where you are, then look at starting your visioning process.
Steve, some of our principals have been in schools for a number of years. They have a clear understanding of their context and they have really good vision statements.
Some do, although I question how many truly do. James, one of the challenges that we put in place for ourselves when we went to the 5P planning process, and if I can just cut across to this, James, we looked at Simon Sinek, and Simon introduced us to the golden circle. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And as educators, we're passionate people, we have a strong moral imperative for what we do, and we all went out and we wrote purpose or mission statements. Very few people wrote true vision statements, and you can't drive a school with a purpose statement. They're quite different. So part of what we're going to look at today is clearly defining and articulating the differences between two, and then I've got a few examples for us to look at and we can critique some other people's work.
Okay, let's do it. So it sounds like there's quite a major and important difference between a vision and a purpose statement.
A vision statement is an aspirational statement that clearly articulates where the school is going to. It gives a chance to imagine, to dream of something better, but it's also really important that it's realistic. There has to be a balance between the dream and the reality, but very much it describes where to.
Okay.
Whereas the purpose describes the moral imperative. It's the why and the what for me. So if you think of the vision as describing where are we going, the purpose is why do we want to go and what are we going to do when we get there.
So why does this organisation exist?
Exactly.
Is a purpose statement. Where is this organisation going?
Yep.
Vision.
So if we have a look at the departments produced a strong vision and purpose from our DOE strategic plan, and that is to be Australia's best education system and one of the finest in the world. Now, if you go back to our definition, is that an aspirational expression? Absolutely. We're not number one at the moment, but we want to get there. Our purpose statement, to prepare young people for rewarding lives as engaging citizens in a complex and dynamic society. Does that meet our moral imperative? Absolutely it does. So I think there's a big tick in terms of the department, at the department level, we've got the difference between our vision and our purpose absolutely right. What's critical though, having written the vision, writing it alone won't do anything. You've got to live it. We've started that with the school targets. So if we want to be the best education system in Australia, we had to aim high. We had to set our targets above the other states, and I'm really comfortable with that. That's for me is a vision I can really buy into. We've unpacked it. Now let's look at some other examples, both good and bad. So if we look at this one from Sandbrook, foster the future. Does it meet our definition for a vision? Is it an aspirational expression?
Well, it is aspirational.
Do you think it sets out a clear where to?
No, it doesn't.
To me, it's more rainbows and unicorns. Terrible. This one, to be recognised externally as a centre of educational excellence.
Well, that sounds aspirational and it explains in what realm they want to be successful?
Let me tell you about this one because I absolutely love it. I was fortunate enough to do a study tour over to Western Australia, and it was the highest performing public school in the state. And that was the school vision. And when I was talking with the principal, he was describing how they came up with it. But as I went around the school, I asked him a question around how do you get your staff to dress so well? And he got really excited and he said, it's really easy. If we want to be recognised externally as a centre of educational excellence, we have to look at what that means for every aspect. So I put that to a staff meeting, handed over to them, and the staff came up with it. He said, but we use the same thing when we're looking at the canteen lines. If we want to be recognised externally as a centre of educational excellence, what does that mean for our students' behaviour? What does it mean for our numeracy results, our literacy results? So he lived the vision, which is why I think it's one of my absolute favourites.
Okay. How about this one?
Okay. North Assini High School. I apologise for the absolute terrible pronunciation, but the school will be a nationally recognised high school in academic achievement by ensuring all students receive rigorous, balanced education that will enable them to compete in and contribute to a global society.
Well, that says where they want to go and how they're going to do it.
Look, I think it meets the requirements. It's long and wordy, and that one would be a challenge to remember. And one of those litmus tests that I believe that every principal should be doing is asking his staff regularly, what's our vision? And if they can't recite it, then your vision needs to be refined.
Let's look at another.
Global learners and leaders exceeding expectations.
Well, I think I know enough now to say that that one's not very good.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. Empowering students to pursue their dreams.
Well, that's not really either a vision or a purpose,
No.
is it?
No.
Okay.
This one from Brown Rock Elementary. Brown Rock Elementary has a welcoming and caring environment for students, faculty and families. We believe and maintain strong partnerships amongst student, staff, families and community. We believe these partnerships all students in achieving personal excellence in academics and in life, critical thinking, problem solving, personal development and community awareness. As a staff, we believe that every child can achieve success every day.
Well, it's very long, isn't it, Steve? It's not aspirational, it's more of a context statement or a description of what they think goes on at the school, perhaps.
Yeah, I think they're trying to describe their learning environment.
Yeah, okay.
So James, we're both nerds. I thought we could have a little bit of fun with this, and if I bring us down to hopefully the lower right hand corner, we can visit the Top Gear Cool Wall. For those people who haven't seen it, we'll throw one up. James, you can choose where you think it goes on our board. It's a continuum from seriously uncool on the left to sub-zero on the right. So let's have a look at our first statement.
So we're rating these according to the criteria you put before, okay. So we've got a vision statement, empowering students to pursue their dreams. We've already had a bit of a chat about this one. We don't think it's aspirational. We don't think that it's even a purpose statement. It's just sort of a bit everywhere, isn't it?
So let's have a look where you're going to place it.
I'd say uncool.
Yep, I'd absolutely agree.
What's next? Oh, the North Assoni. Okay, nationally recognised in academic achievement, ensuring students receive rigorous, balanced education. Look, I'm going to say that pretty much ticks the boxes. It's aspirational. It says how and in what areas it's going to be aspirational.
And I don't think it's great, but it certainly meets our criteria.
Well, I'm saying it's going in cool.
Well done.
All right. Oh, the Brown Rock. Okay, so we went through this one. Yes, it's kind of a description of the learning environment as opposed to aspirational or the moral or ethical purpose for it being. So it's neither of those things, so it's uncool. I'm saying seriously uncool.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last one, global learners, nearly the last one, global learners and leaders exceeding expectations.
That doesn't do it for me. I can't see where the school's going to go, and I can't see how the principal can use it to drive the daily operation. So for me, uncool.
Okay. And, well, you've already spoken to this one, to be recognised externally as a centre of educational excellence. It's a very good vision statement. I guess the additional benefit, as you've already alluded to, it's a little bit shorter and quite memorable for if you're a staff or a stakeholder on that site. You're going to remember that one, aren't you?
Absolutely. Oh, you're tipping into sub-zero. All right, what have we got next, James?
Last one, foster the future.
Well, foster the future. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's
I think that's a good test in itself. If we can't tell as the leaders in the school what the vision means, what hope have every key stakeholder got? All right, throw it up.
It's going to be uncool. Seriously uncool.
And we've got one more to go.
Oh, I'd forgotten about this one. Yes.
Mark, you didn't mean it.
To be Australia's best education system and one of the finest in the world. Well, it certainly is aspirational. It explains, it gives us some context. In fact, it's setting 2 goals, isn't it?
It absolutely is, but I believe that as a system we can use that to steer where we're going. It clearly highlights where we want to be, and it gives us a measure to hold ourselves to account on whether we've realised our vision. So, yep, let's place it up, James. Yep.
Sub-zero. Very, very cool indeed.
Absolutely.
Steve, we understand the importance of a good and solid vision statement now. What process would you use to get in there?
James, there are obviously many books written purely on coming up with a vision statement, and in doing the work before this episode, I had a look at about half a dozen of my favourites, and it was interesting because most of them contradicted each other. There is one process that I really like. For the principals that have been involved in the art of leadership, they'd probably be very familiar with the window of certainty. It's available, it's cheap. Unfortunately, we don't get a kickback. I think it's about $25, $30. But it takes the principal through a structured process to develop not just the vision, but other components within the school. So if we go across to the next graphic. So when you look at the window of certainty, the first thing it does is it takes you through a really strong process to come up with a vision. It builds on that to give a purpose statement, and then from there you come out with your values, your beliefs, and ultimately your outcomes, which, lining with the school improvement plan, I believe will be your improvement measures. Now, using this lockstep process, you end up with a really strong document that articulates everything the school stands for. I know that I took my network through this process, and James, the language we use is we say, let's look for a decision that doesn't match up with our window of certainty. Because if we can find any decision that I make or one of the principals make that isn't in line, then we know that we've become off track and we're not following our own destination.
That makes sense.
This is a really easy process. It's a simple read, but really is a very structured process to deliver a great result, and one that I'd highly recommend.
So knowing what you stand for, knowing what your school stands for.
Yep, and the difference between values and beliefs, once we've articulated that as a staff, it's really easy for a principal to guide his staff. Let's look at our window of certainty. Does that sit with what we believe in? Does that sit with what we value? And it helps that decision-making process, but ultimately it's got to come back to that vision. Do our actions, do our decisions align with our school vision? And if not, then they're wrong. That brings us to the end of the episode, and I get very excited when we talk about school visions, and I'm sure that process, if followed, will provide a really strong structure and help every principal come up with a very strong vision statement. James, what have we got coming up in the next episode?
In episode 3 of ImpactEd, we will pull apart the situational analysis template. We'll look at the sections that are inside of it, and we'll look at maybe stepping out how we will start addressing that document.
That sounds like the first in a series.
It will be.
All right, that's it from me.
And goodbye from me.